Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today, and I have a video here to talk about a movie that I grew up absolutely loving. I just watched it again. It's a very big summertime type of movie for me. Kind of like Gone in 60 Seconds and, the Nick Cage movie, not the original. Death Race with Jason Statham, not the original. But this is kind of a case of that too, of not the original. The Punisher from 2004, starring Thomas Jane as Frank Castle, the Punisher, and John Travolta as Howard Saint, I think is his name. So, when this movie came out, it was a massive hit. I don't really understand why we didn't get a sequel. We ended up getting a soft reboot a few years later with Ray Stevenson. And I know that a lot of the fans are kind of harsh on this movie, kind of like people are with like the Arrow TV show when it first started still. And the Green Arrow fans, right? And I get it to an extent. As a comic fan, I get it. When my favorite characters are kind of ruined or kind of disrespected more than ruined, I would say, I get it. I get where people are coming from with that. But I really love this movie. Everything from the action in it to the revenge, the emotion, the soundtrack, the score itself. It's a very neo-Western movie, and I really, really love that about it. I love revenge movies anyway, like Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon. But everybody pretends nowadays to absolutely hate this movie, and I do not get it. Yeah, I like Warzone. In some ways, I like Warzone more than this. I think overall, this is my favorite of the Punishers, casting and movie-wise. But I don't really understand where people are coming from with thinking this is awful. I mean, it's just an opinion thing, but still, it's like, dude, what the hell could this movie have done wrong to you? The biggest thing for me is where I'm coming from for anybody who doesn't know. I love The Punisher because of this movie. This is what got me into it and the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s that I used to watch on Fox Kids. And I learned about The Punisher there. This movie came out. I got to watch it with family where I had to have my eyes covered because of the nudity in it. But I loved the film. I thought it was awesome. It was so badass, dude. And it's still like that to this day. It's a very, very well-made movie as a revenge thriller, neo-Western, like I said. But it's got such a good budget behind it. It's got a great cast here. Some really great writing, in my opinion. Some killer one-liners, dude. Oh my god, I quote this movie so much. I've never read enough of The Punisher. I love the Punisher comics I have read, but we're talking more of like when he started out, or stuff like Warzone or War Journal, or are those two different things? I read those. I've reviewed Deadpool versus the Punisher here on the channel at one point last year. I love the Punisher. I just haven't read the great stuff, the Garth Ennis Punisher Max stuff that people absolutely love and recommend. That is like, for most people, that seems to be the go-to. And as a hardcore fan, you think I would have read that already. Not really, because it stays out of print for some reason, and it's on digital, which I don't mind. I just don't like buying it. I don't mind borrowing it from like Libby or something, the library app. But to buy digitally the first volume of Punisher Max, it's like $25 or $30, and I'm not paying that. I'm just not going to do that for a file. I'm not going to do that. So I want to read those at some point, and I've heard that this movie, according to my really good friend Heath, who loves Punisher stuff, he's read all of Max, he owns all of Max from Garth Ennis. Apparently this film gets a little bit of influence from that. I don't know how true that is. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe Heath's an idiot. I don't know. God bless him, though. I love him. So basically what this film is, in case you've never seen The Punisher, if you are the kind of typical guy who loves like Reacher novels and the Bourne movies and whatever, right? This is a movie that you need to see. I really believe that. Even if you hate comic books, if you hate superheroes, if you don't want anything to do with superhero stuff, this is completely secluded. Obviously, because it's pre-MCU. It's not the John Bernthal thing, nor is John Bernthal's series a continuation of this. This is completely standalone, right? It's way better than the OG Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie from the 90s? Oh, it's a terrible-ass movie. Mostly. So, with this movie, basically Frank Castle is an undercover, FBI? Something like that. Some kind of undercover agent and he pretty much retires, and he wants to spend time with his wife and his son. They go on a big family retreat vacation to this beautiful, like, Bahamas place. I don't even know where they're at. But they're out there as a family, not just the three of them, but their entire family, including Roy Schreider, whatever his name is from Jaws, as his dad. And John Travolta had a son, they're like the mob, and one of his sons, matter of fact, he has two sons and a wife. One of his sons was a big gangster and was killed. And after they had the funeral, while Frank Castle has retired and went out on his whole, trip, they find out that he isn't actually dead like they thought he was. They find out that he's a retired cop and whatever. So John Travolta and his wife order a hit from their team, including the other son that's still alive and the best henchman guy for John Travolta, to go out and kill Frank and all of his family. And they accomplish it mostly. They kill every single one of his family members pretty much right in front of him. And it's truly upsetting to me. Every time I watch it, dude, and that massacre scene starts up on the beach, it gives me chills. Mainly because the first person who, after they hear a gunshot, Frank looks outside, and his mom is the first one to get hit. And she's just kind of leaning over, and she's an older lady, So it's pretty upsetting. It's kind of chilling, to be honest, with how stone cold these guys are. I really love what they did with this. This whole shootout in the beginning with Frank and his dad from Jaws trying to defend the island, to defend the family that are still alive. It's scary. It's tense, man. But eventually, Frank is on his own. They think they killed him. It turns out they didn't. Months go by, like 5 or 6 months go by. And Frank is healed up after all the gunshots and wounds he went through. And he goes out on a revenge spree. He gets an apartment building. He gets this really awesome muscle car. I don't know what it is. I'm not good with cars. And he puts like metal bulletproof steel sheets that he can just lower down from the ceiling like you would like one of those sun blocker things, whatever those things are called. And he just does all of this stuff. He sets up all of this stuff inside of his apartment where he can just be ready to go take people out if they come to his house, if they're outside, whatever. He arms himself up with all this, guns and dynamite, grenades, everything, man. He has some wacky neighbors that are in the place, too. There's one man who's a real big guy. I think they called him Bumbo. Is that his name? He's mentally slow. He's not all there. But I love that character. And then you have my boy, oh God, what is his name? Ben Foster, excuse me. Ben Foster is in this movie. Now you have to understand, I also grew up watching the remake of 3:10 to Yuma and Pandorum. I love Ben Foster. Did not realize until a few years ago, this is Ben Foster. This is a younger Ben Foster, right? And he's so good here. He has like all these piercings in his mouth. He's best friends with Bumbo or whatever the other guy's name is. And they kind of take care of each other. It's not like he takes care of the mentally slow guy. They both take care of each other. Bumbo can cook and stuff. There's also this absolute smoke show woman living in the apartment too, who has like an abusive boyfriend and stuff. Not living with her, but he has some encounters with Frank Castle because of his abuse. And I love that chick. She's trying to kind of get a thing going with Frank Castle, and I love that that's never completely become a thing by the end of this movie. I love that they don't do that with Frank. His whole motivation is that he wants to get revenge for his wife, his son, his whole family. And most of this film is built around Frank making plans, not actively constantly going out after Howard Saint, John Travolta the bad guy, or any of his crew. It's mostly the Punisher making plans to do that eventually. And these scumbags just keep coming to get him over and over again, and he just won't die. There are so many awesome fights with, like, hitmen that, Howard Saint will try to get. Like, one guy that comes to the diner where the chick in the apartments works. He plays a song as, like, his death note, and then he, like, chases Frank down in his car and tries to kill him in the street like a dog. Then you have the big Russian fight, which is one of the best fist fights in movies I've ever seen in my life, dude. Again, the soundtrack and everything just absolutely is so great here. You have that absolutely amazing song from Amy Long called I'm Broken. You know, the chick from Evanescence, which is a great song. It's kind of more in the background than I remember it being in this movie. But it's got a great soundtrack kind of like that, like Daredevil had back in, 2003? Is that when that was? The year before this? That's hard to imagine. It's hard to believe. And the year before that was the first Spider-Man movie. Good God. But yeah, I mean, this really, dude, it is such a good flick, and all of the fighting, the vengeance, the little bit of gore and blood you get in here, all of that stuff is so well done. And the comics that I have read of Punisher, again, are the more beginning appearances of him, like the first time he ever appeared was in a Spider-Man comic, for example. And yet, the way the scenes are framed in this movie, a lot of the time they look like they're right out of a comic book, just not as gritty as like the Garth Ennis texture and tone to the actual art in those comics. I've seen panels, I just haven't read them. It doesn't look entirely like that, but the look of the film is so fantastic. It's such a clean-cut looking movie, not in the modern sense, but at that time. And I would argue personally, I love Daredevil, I love the first Spider-Man and the second movie as well. I love the first X-Men movie, not so much X2. But this might be my second favorite of that pre-MCU Marvel stuff, right behind the first Spider-Man. Seriously, I mean, it might really truthfully be that for me, because of how insanely well made this movie is. This feels like a passion project. I love it so much that I've sat down and watched behind the scenes stuff. It used to play on the FX channel all the time when I had cable at my old house before I got married. And every time it would come on, I couldn't help but watch it. All of the revenge stuff, all of the plotting and planning, it may be taken directly from the comics. Again, I don't know. But if it's not, even if it is, whatever, the writing on how this plotting goes to get revenge for Frank's family is so well done. The ending, if you are not so pumped up by like halfway through this movie, whether it be emotionally or anything, dude, I don't know what to tell you. There's something wrong with you at that point. I'm a diehard fan of this movie. It's probably in my top like 25 movies ever made, to be honest with you. That's coming from a huge fan. That's not just coming from somebody who's a casual normie fan. Like, we're not talking about just in the range of comic book movies for me. We're talking about like all of my favorite films ever. This is probably my top 20 or 25 for sure. Now, if we're talking top 10 comic movies, there's a good chance this is up there with like Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Dark Knight, Batman 89, Batman Returns, all of those things. It's definitely probably going to be up there in that ballpark because I adore it. I think it is so good. And I really think the most underappreciated thing about it, for me personally, John Travolta's a little goofy in here, but Thomas Jane is phenomenal as Frank. I really think he's my favorite Frank Castle. I don't care what anybody says. I love him. I think he looks, he sounds, even though I wish his voice was a little bit deeper, I really love him as Frank. I think there's something so special about that guy. He's just a badass. The way he carries himself and everything. Thomas Jane, to me, doesn't have a whole lot of range as an actor, but neither did Clint Eastwood. You know what I mean? So, like, we're in a time now where actors can slip through the cracks like Thomas Jane, who back in the day would have been an absolute humongous movie star. Back in, like, the Clint Eastwood days and the Western days. There's that one particular line that he delivers where the guy that rescued Frank after his whole family had been killed and he'd been healing up for months, there's a local fisherman guy that saves Frank in the movie. And he's like, "Go with God, Frank." And Frank turns around and he's like, "God's gonna sit this one out." And it's so good. Thomas Jane just kills, absolutely brutally nails that line. And there's so many other good ones, like when he's putting the bomb in this one person's hand later in the movie and telling him, like, you have to leave your arm up in the air and stuff. The lines he delivers leading up to that. Dude, there's just no one to me who could pull this off as good as Thomas Jane did and the writer/director of the movie did. This director is clearly a fan of this project, of this franchise, IP, whatever. It's very clear to me, as a big fan of Punisher, despite not having read the Garth Ennis stuff, you can tell when somebody clearly gives a shit. It's just like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man stuff. Even Bryan Singer, even though I don't love his X-Men stuff, I do love that first movie, and I think it's clear that he cared, right? It's not perfect, but I think he clearly cared. That's how this director-writer seems with this movie to me. But I love it. I think all of the fights and stuff, like I said, are just insanely awesome. It's iconic. It's so iconic. I love the shirt, when he's got the shirt and it has the Punisher logo, which is kind of rare in the movie, but when it's there, it's so sick. I love it. But again, it has so much emotion to it, and I adore this movie. I love Warzone as well. It's not as good as this. It feels like a Lionsgate movie, because it is a Lionsgate movie. But this is really good. As a matter of fact, this was so good, we even got a fan film made years later. I think it was called Dirty Laundry, where a fan made an unofficial fan film, obviously, and had Thomas Jane play the Punisher again, just fighting some criminals out in the street. It was great. It felt like a direct, total sequel to this, and I really wish that had been picked up to make a feature film out of. And I think that was before Warzone. I could be wrong, but still. Anyway, God bless Thomas Jane. He will always be my Punisher, just like Robert Downey Jr. will always be my Spider-Man, or, my Iron Man. Eric Bana will always, for some reason, be my Hulk, despite my love for Ed Norton and Bill Bixby. Christopher Daniel Barnes will always be my Spider-Man from when I was a kid. Kevin Conroy will always be my Batman, just like Ben Affleck for the live action of that. But Thomas Jane, to me, deserves so much more credit than he got for this movie. Same thing with the director. It's a shame. It's really a shame to me that this doesn't get more love. So anyway, when Punisher came out back in the day, how did you feel about it? Did you love it? Do you hate it? Are you a big Punisher fan? Have you read the Garth Ennis stuff? How much of an influence does that have on this movie? Was that still coming out at the same time this was being made? I'm pretty sure it was, right? I never read any Max comics, but I'm fairly confident that was the case. I could be wrong, though, so who knows? But I love this flick. I have a copy on VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. I've watched it, again, a million times. It never gets old to me. But it pretty much became like a yearly watch for me in the summertime. It feels like summer. People are always sweating and everything in the movie. The music fits that feel. The muscle cars, the action, the testosterone, all of it, dude. It just kicks so much ass. And again, even if you don't like comics or comic movies or anything, if you just like neo-Western noir, shoot 'em up types of movies, this is for you. This, to me, was the modern day at the time, 21 years ago. Oh, good God. This was the answer in modern day to Rambo. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, it had been around for a couple of decades, but movie-wise, I am shocked that we never got sequels to this. I really am, and I know the movie had to have done well because of how big it was and how it was everywhere. Everyone was talking about this movie at school, in places my family and I would go, family events, everything. Anyway, what do you think about the movie? Let me know what you think about this and Warzone and all that down below. I'd love to hear everything you have to say about them all down below. God bless the Punisher. God bless you. Catch you later. Goodbye.